Welcome to Dwell on These Things, a podcast of Dwell Community Church in Columbus, Ohio, where we discuss whatever is honorable, pure, lovely, commendable, excellent, and praiseworthy.
Welcome back to another episode of Dwell on These Things. My name is Brian Adams. I'm your host today. I am the division coordinator for student ministries here at Dwell. And today, I'm sitting down with Scott Risley and James Rochford, two of our elders who are up for re-election in April. So we're going to get to know you guys a little bit, talk a little bit about the role of an elder is, what your guys' personal lives are like. So I'm excited to get into this and have people hear about it. Okay, so let's get right into the heart of it. You guys are up for eldership renewal. It's going to happen here in about a month in April. Let's circle back to the beginning. How did you come to Christ and get involved in our church specifically?
Well, I came to Christ in November of 2004. I had a friend I met in class. He was, shaved head, earrings, bandana, sleeveless shirt, show off his lack of muscles, skateboard. He just seemed like a really cool, interesting person. We really hit it off. We became quick friends, and that was really awesome. Then, quickly I came to a home church, and I had never seen anything like that. It was so profound. There was a group of guys there that were beefcake jocks, 250-pound NFL linemen. There were guys who were nerds and drank coffee and sat and pontificated out on the porch, and they truly loved each other. It was this remarkable thing. I remember going back to my house on East 14th Avenue, and I was telling all my non-Christian friends, you've got to see this. And the next week at our central teaching, I brought 3 of them with me as a non-Christian, and they didn't seem to like it as much as I did. But we really, I was profoundly impacted by that. Then the Bible teaching, there was an older guy that was up there. He seemed to know a profound amount about theology and the original languages and philosophy and science and history. And I just thought to myself, wow, this is really speaking into my life. It's relevant. And within a couple weeks, I came to know Christ. Then April 19th, 2005, I made the second decision to follow Christ. It was the day before 420. I smoked my last bowl. I just said, this is stupid. I'm sick of this. Paul said his previous life before Christ was rubbish. It was garbage. That's how I felt. I just looked at this and I was like, this isn't giving me anything. I've got something way better. And for better or for worse, it's been failures and moving forward, but I haven't looked back. So,
yeah, I actually grew up in a Christian church, but I never really, I don't think, got it. I would kind of sit in the back with my friends. When I got into high school, I'd start cutting out of church, or we would pick the lock in the janitor's closet and play cards during the church service. And it wasn't until the beginning of my senior year in high school that God did some things in my life where my life kind of fell apart and I hit a real low point. And I suddenly got interested in the things of God. I went to a weekend retreat, and the speaker there, I was just captivated. I think I was in a place of willingness, but I was just captivated by his Bible teaching that weekend. And at the end, he issued an invitation. And there was something about the way he said it that finally, for the first time, I feel like I reached out in my heart and connected with the love of God that I just hadn't. And I had always heard about the love of God but I just thought of it as this distant personal thing, like the federal government is concerned for you or something. But it was just so real and personal, and I realized this is the thing that I've been lacking, that I've been looking for my whole life, and I've been looking in all the wrong places for it. Mm-hmm. And so I just thought, I want more of that. I grew up near Cincinnati. I came up to Ohio State and had been praying for a church to get involved with, and my parents knew a friend of theirs is the cousin of Danny Walker. He's been around our church since the 70s. Danny tracked me down, got me out to a college home church in November of 1996, my freshman year. So this is, almost 30 years ago.
Wow.
And I really liked it, but I also was a little intimidated by the fact that, the teaching would end and people would want to sit around and talk to each other for a couple hours. That was very foreign to me because I always tried to get out of the church building as quick as possible just because I didn't feel like I could let down and be myself. But God worked in my life to bring me to a point where I got pretty hungry for fellowship, and some really godly people burrowed into my life. And I also watched other people open up about their sin. And that finally gave me the courage to open up. And I finally started letting the real me come out. That was like spring of my freshman year. I really wanted to move into a ministry house. My parents said I needed to come home for the summer unless I could get an internship, which is pretty rare for a freshman engineering student. I was computer science. And I prayed, and then I saw an ad hanging on the wall for an internship, and I called him up, and I got a job as an intern with the state about 3 weeks before the end of my freshman year. Moved right into a ministry house up on Ceramic Drive. Wow. Martha McCallum was out front planting flowers the day we moved in. and I loved it. And when I moved into that house, I just felt like I've hidden my whole life, and I'm just going to be open. I just felt like God finally started bringing the real me out. And so I couldn't have been happier. That was just kind of the starting point of what's been going on for 27 years now.
Hey, that's awesome. Two very cool stories. So you guys both came around or came to Christ as students, and I'm sure you had plans for your career that were probably not being pastors and elders. So what did it look like to start coming on staff, right? Like, what did you guys originally start doing when you came on staff here? And then what did it look like to become an elder? Did you experience a calling from God, or how did that process work?
Yeah, I started to almost immediately volunteer down at our urban ministry at Urban Concern, and I was riding my bike. I didn't own a car, so I'd ride my bike down to South Linden and volunteer with the after-school program. Eventually, they were like, you keep coming here, why don't we pay you? So I was like, okay, so started to work there, and in the mornings, I would get there early, pray and read the Bible. Right around 2008, I just had this thought of, man, I would really love to be a Bible teacher, be a pastor. That was like kind of an interesting thought. So that kind of struck me. I just kind of filed that away. And then within a couple months, I got approached by one of the guys on staff, and he said, what do you think about being a Bible teacher and a pastor here at the church? And I thought, let me pray about it. Yes, yeah, I'll do that. I got my feet wet and teaching classes and coaching, and got discipled by him. And it was just a very kind of a slow process, and it was great. Definitely felt a calling, but I also felt like it was, you sense a calling and then you feel like it's going to be that week or something. And I'm glad it wasn't. I'm glad that God really worked patiently throughout that time to help me. So mature and grow and be tested and that sort of thing. Yeah.
My freshman year in college, I just really admired the spiritual leaders in my life. I really enjoyed the Bible teachings. I wanted to be able to teach the Bible like that. And so I just would pray to God, like, I want to lead for you. I want to teach for you. I want to be used by you. So even though I was studying software development, there was a part of me that always felt like, I think I'm going to end up doing this leadership thing on staff someday. And I was really happy as a software developer. I mean, I was involved. I started leading toward the end of undergrad. I went to grad school, partly because I got the opportunity to teach a computer science class. And I just thought, this will be great practice as a teacher, and I want to be a Bible teacher someday. So I sort of viewed my grad school as practice teaching.
Yeah. And if you can teach something as boring as software development and make it exciting, I guess that probably helps.
We had so much fun in that software development class. So I felt like I got super valuable experience teaching there, but I had a couple internships. I actually had a career for about 3 years doing software consulting for a small company in town. And the funniest thing happened the way God lined it up. It was maybe a 15, 20 person company, but my bosses came to me one day and they were like, we want to start grooming you to take over this company someday. Like less than a week later, I get a call from Mike Sullivan, and he's like, we were wondering if you wanted to cut back to part-time at your career and start getting trained to teach a Christian principles class. And I just felt like God put the two things right next to each other for a reason. And even at the time, it was sort of a weird time because my wife had a great career, quit her job to go back to school for 6 months to finish up her undergrad. This was in the middle of that. So if I take this job and lose my job, we don't have insurance. We didn't have kids yet, but we had a mortgage. And so I felt like God was like, do you trust me? And I really felt like if God wants me to do this, he's going to provide. And so I finally was like, okay, I'm going to go talk to my bosses. My wife still had not heard from her old company yet. She was hoping to rehire her, but they were not returning her calls. She was a month from graduation. So I go in to meet with my one boss who's a Christian and was like, if this is what God's calling you to do, you got to do this. We go down to the other boss who was also a Christian. They were super supportive. I come back to my desk. There's a message from my wife saying, I just got a call from Cardinal Health. They want me to come in to interview for 3 different jobs later this week.
Wow.
And so I just felt like God put this question to me. Do you trust me? Are you willing to step out? And then he so clearly lined everything up and then lined up the answer that I just felt like this was undeniable. So I ended up taking that role and then ended up leaving my job altogether just a couple months later to come on staff to do some coaching and teaching.
Man, that's awesome. It's very cool. Okay. So you guys have been on staff for a while. What would you say is your favorite thing about working at Dwell?
I think the thing I enjoy the most is I get to be myself. I've been around a lot of Christians, and there's this Christian speak, and I don't know really how to describe it in words, but I never felt comfortable, I guess. I never felt like I could be myself, and really enjoy the friendships that we get to hold. I was reading, Barna said in 2021 that 38% of pastors had seriously considered quitting. And a lot of that has to do with, loneliness and alienation and discouragement. And, we have times of that, but having the friendships and the closeness and vulnerability, that's just one of the best things that you can't really quantify. It's just great.
It's cool.
Yeah, I would have to say my favorite things about working here are the people. I get to meet and work with awesome people. Like, I don't know if I ever would have really gotten to know either of you guys that well, but I get to work with on a daily basis awesome, godly people who really are more gifted than me in so many ways and who challenge me in so many ways. I also get to, meet so many people in our church, leaders of groups that I get to coach that, some of these leaders I never would have met and got to see just how much they're striving to live for God, how much they're striving to glorify Him, how they're dealing with the challenges in their life and still prevailing. And the fact, like James says, that we're not all alone on an island as some pastor that's isolated, but we can be real, we can be ourselves and get the support that comes from that. And in addition to the people, the fact that I get to teach the Bible for a living, the fact that I have the freedom to do what I feel like God's leading me to do, to lead in this church. I just feel like I've got a lot of flexibility and also a lot of resources to pull that off. We have a generous church that funds the ministry we need to do and the staff we need to hire and things like that.
It's very cool. Okay, let's zoom out a little bit and think about the eldership as a whole again. I wanted to ask you guys, what are the relationships like specifically among the elders? What has it been like over the years just to be a part of that community and that leadership team trying to lead our church forward?
Yeah, the hardest part for me on eldership is the other elders don't like all my brilliant ideas and suggestions. And in all seriousness, you have to work on a team of people that are opinionated and gifted and skilled, and you have to show a lot of deference and, okay, we'll do it your way this time. And part of that, there's times where you just are so convinced that your idea is the right way, and that's just not the way God has called us. He's called us to lead on a team. That's very sanctifying. It's very good. It's very healthy, and I think it's really kept us in check. I guess I would say the absence of conflict isn't the presence of peace. And I think we've experienced, I'm sure Slim would agree with this, is we've experienced incredible unity as an eldership, even when we're going through disagreement, debate, dialogue, discussion. And that's really, I think, sharpened us. So we're seeing unparalleled unity, even though it's hard to work with 10 other different people. That makes it complex. So.
Yeah, I really enjoy the times of retreats where we get away, we get to spend time together. We see each other throughout the day. It's been great having our offices all together. This was a shift we made a few years ago.
Yeah.
Where we just didn't have enough office space. I worked from home, from coffee shops a lot, and we finally built a space where we've all got offices, we can come together. And I think that's been really good for unity because when you're only interacting over email, it's easy to interpret things the wrong way. You don't have just that common time of laughing together. How's your day going? How are things going with your family? Just cracking jokes. And so I really like having our office space together. I really like the times where we're able to get away on retreats, where we're able to, some of us will go for a run together. We sit around, we watch movies late at night and laugh, and we play cards together. And there's a lot of that is essential just to have times of enjoyment with each other. So it's just a great group to be around, and I can't believe I get to work with these people.
That's awesome. I know I can say I'm very thankful that you guys wade into this difficult work. It's not easy to lead a church of thousands. I've seen a little bit of that just in my role, and I can't imagine exactly what it'd be like to have to wade through some very difficult decisions, but also, to face some of those challenges altogether. It's very cool, and I'm very appreciative that you guys do that among the other elders. I wondered if maybe you guys had any specific burdens about where we're going as a church as you think about your next, 3 years of being an elder. What exactly are you burdened for? Maybe a direction that you feel like God is putting on your heart that we're trying to go?
Something I've really been getting into lately is the notion of peacemaking. I have developed a burden to think through how our church helps people work through conflict. I think that this has come up a lot over the past couple of years, really since the pandemic, where people were put under a lot of strain, were put under a lot of isolation. We saw public discourse. It seems like up until, 5 years ago, there was still sort of like generally accepted rules of discourse. And now I just feel like it's more angry rhetoric. I think, the algorithm of social media has pushed people further and further toward the extremes that they click on, and things that get clicked on are the extreme things. And so we've got more challenges than ever to peace. Public shaming, cancel culture. So I think we've got a lot of challenges to peace. And I have felt a burden for trying to increase just the resources we have in our church. I think there are more and more complicated issues related to conflict that we need to learn. So we want to try to be proactive, but also develop more resources for when people are in conflict and trying to train lay people on how to help move into conflicts and help people get along.
Man, it's a great burden. You think about how intimately involved we are in relationships. When you think about what the Bible calls us to in the one another passages, conflict is inevitable. So I love that we're trying to get resources to work on that. It's going to be very critical for helping people.
Well, and one of our strengths as a church is how close we are, how much time we spend together, but that's also creates problems that we're going to need to work through. And so if we want to be as close as we want to be, we're going to have to learn how to work through conflict.
Yeah. You guys are both parents. What's your favorite thing about being a parent?
I do a weekly data day with my two kids. As you can tell, I'm sick. I have two roommates that have been coughing in my face. Speaking of my kids, but we get a weekly time together. We go out. We throw the football, throw the frisbee. We usually do some reading together. My oldest is doing a comic book. It's called Flip Jump is the character. He came up with that when he was 5, which is awesome. We did a comic book together. We sent it in to Dave Pilkey. He's the guy who, did Captain Underpants during COVID. And 6 months went by, and I just thought, this guy's famous. He's not going to talk to us or whatever. And my son was praying about it, and he was like, no, he's going to respond to us. And a couple days later, we get a letter in the mail from none other than Dave Pilkey himself. And it says, Adventures of Flip Jump is awesome. I love it, So we're working on issue number 2 currently, and it's going to be called Rise of the Little Guy. That's going to be the new villain. So we're enjoying that. We do Lego stop motion. We do creaking. We do a lot of camping. And then with my youngest, He's a card shark. He plays Uno and beats me 60, 70% of the time. One time we were going out for our Dada Day, and he brought the thing of Uno, and he said, "Do you want me to bring this?" Bear in mind, he's like 5 at the time. And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Well, are you sure?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Because if I bring this, it might ruin your day because I'm going to kick your butt into next week." I was like, this is so, like, my kid is trash talking me at Uno. So that has been so much fun. Discipling your kids. We started at a very young age. It was not rewarding. It was trying to talk to them. You're trying to get conversation going, and there's nothing there because they're 2 years old, and you know what I mean? Like you're just playing blocks. That's what you're doing. But to see the fruit of that bear out when they get older is really a blast. So yeah, I love that about being a parent, is that weekly time.
Yeah, my kids are 13 and 15. I have a son and a daughter. I asked my daughter, I'm doing a podcast, what's my favorite thing about being a parent? And she kind of smirked at me and she said, not having to do any chores around the house.
The slave labor mostly.
Yeah. So I just love just seeing a relationship grow. My daughter's my oldest. When she was born, I did not necessarily feel this intense closeness with her right away. I mean, that took a little bit of time. But just to start to bond with her, as a baby, and then to go through some of the things James was talking about, where I'm spending, time with my kids, and I'm like almost falling asleep and feeling like a bad father for that. Mm-hmm. But just to see, them start to go from nothing to having a personality, having their own personality, to see their sense of humor develop, to see their observations on life, to, just to grow, and to see showing up for that weekly time with my kids. Like sometimes you're like, is anything really happening here? So now it's like, the proverb says, the father of godly children has cause for joy. What a pleasure to have children who are wise. And I just I hear at least horror stories about teenagers, and I guess that still might be coming, but honestly, I just feel like I get along with my kids really well. I just love the relationship. We've made a lot of memories together. We still are making more memories together. Actually, I just bought tickets for my first ever NBA game. I'm going to take Matt up to see the Cavs next week.
Awesome.
Just, little trips like that, an evening trip, camping as a family. I just feel like it's been way more of a delight than I ever imagined it would be. And I loved the early years, but I love the current times because they're becoming people who I can relate to. And I look forward to the years to come, and I hope I can still have a friendship with them in the future. And ultimately, I hope they love God going forward. And I see those seeds really developing now, and I pray for my kids that they would fall in love with God.
That's awesome. All right, so you guys are busy. You have a lot going on. Your parents, the work is intensive. What does it look like to maintain a strong time with the Lord in the midst of such a busy schedule? What does that look like for you guys over the years and even now?
I was really impacted by the story of Chuck Smith, the Calvary Chapel pastor out in the West Coast, and his time with God in the morning. I know he's on a different schedule than us, doing college ministry and staying out late, but he would get up, he would read in the morning and pray, and it was hours, just hours of Bible reading and prayer, and that always stuck with me. That was in 2009. 2015, I started to implement that. There was all these different people that I don't want to knock any of these, okay? But people were like, I'm really into Bible meditation, and I'm really into this many chapters a day, or I'm into this Bible reading plan. And I tried all those, and I really tried, and it was difficult. But I found a certain method where I would just do a chapter a day, read a commentator, do some writing, and really enjoying it. That was my niche that I got into. I really like to write. It gets my thoughts out on paper. I do not like the idea of reading devotionally in the negative sense, where I just kind of take whatever I want from the passage and get it to say what I want it to say. I really want to know what the text is saying. So since about 2015, I've been using some of my hours just to do reading, Bible study in the morning, and that's turned into writing and stuff for commentaries on my website that people have used. But for me, it's kept me in the Word daily for 8 years, I guess, at this point, and I just don't get sick of it. I really enjoy it. So currently I'm in the pastoral epistles, and I'm working through Bill Mounce's commentary, and it's a little bit arduous to get through, but I just take it a little bit at a time, and I don't do a chapter a day with Mounce. That's all too much, but I just do it until I wear out and I get something out of it. And prayer life has been a struggle, but I'm seeing victory. I was really moved by Conrad's teaching this Saturday, so I deleted some apps on my phone. I'm still muscle memory clicking for Facebook in the morning. It's really weird. That's what they call addiction when you are still reaching for the thing. So my prayer life has been way better. I like to journal. I close my eyes. I have a password-protected Word document and type. And what's funny is I don't worry about punctuation or grammar. I just get my thoughts out. And there's been quite a few times that my fingers are not on the home keys. And so it's all in caps.
Speaking in tongues.
Yeah, it's nonsense. It's a page of nonsense, So that it's just a way of me of getting out of, sensory overload and hearing from God and getting my thoughts out. So that's an area of growth. And the other one, I wouldn't suggest it to other people. People hate reading commentaries, and I get it, and Christian books, and I get it. And I don't want them to do that if they don't want to. They should find something that they like and enjoy and look forward to. So that's just something I found that I really like. So
I think it's really cool because I think that all of us out here are trying to find something that works. It's also it's helpful to hear, like, even an elder in our church, you're trying to work through how to deepen your prayer life. It's really encouraging, where sometimes I think it can be easy to feel like, man, I'm just the only person who can't sit down to pray, when in reality, most of us are fighting that battle.
Yeah, right.
We're trying to deepen our intimacy with God and trying to find creative ways to do that. So that's really cool.
Yeah, for me, I try to do this first thing in the morning, just because if I start getting on my phone, if I start getting on email, it's like, I feel like it's hard enough to get time with God when I haven't already started filling my mind with things that get my brain going off in different directions, get me concerned about things, start making, to-do lists in my head of what I need to do. And so I try to leave my phone plugged in and far away from where I am. I've tried computer Bible over the years, and I just feel like when I'm on the computer, my mouse takes on a mind of its own, and before I know it, I'm surfing the web or whatever. I'm just going to check one thing real quick, and I lose my place. So I go paper Bible, and I get my coffee. I've got a place. I do it pretty much every morning. And for me, I like to read a psalm. I like to read a few Proverbs, and then I try to get through the whole Bible each year. That's what works for me. It's been working for me. And when something works, I try not to mess with it. So I just try to read some scripture. I try to have a pen so I can underline something, jot something in the margin just so I got to interact with it. And then from there, I will either do some prayer journaling on my laptop, which is risky to open up the screen, or I've got like kind of a prayer list method that works for me. Usually it involves walking. I'm like the guy walking through, my neighborhood with a printout, and I don't know what my neighbors think. I've had people ask me about it. One lady, I was stopped to jot something down on my prayer list. One lady stopped me and she said, "So are you like a tree scientist?" Because I was standing in front of it.
And you said, yes, I'm a tree scientist.
Oh,
yes.
I was like, no, it's my prayer list. She didn't know what to say to that. But what's nice about that is I'm away from my phone. I'm walking. It kind of wakes my brain up a little bit. But it's a struggle.
Nice. Very cool. All right, let's one last question here. With every elder, there is a spouse standing right alongside them, another incredibly strong leader for God. And so I wondered if you guys might want to just talk for a moment about your wives who are working right alongside you, leading, discipling, helping you. I wondered, what are some of your wife's strengths? How does she come alongside you in your role as an elder here in this church? I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about that.
I took a counseling course years ago, and there was a really wise teacher. He was a professional counselor. And he said something that stuck with me. He said, when you're looking for a best friend, look for somebody who is not impressed with you. And my wife is very unimpressed with me in the best way. I never feel like I'm performing. I'll come back home and say, did you think that was good? And yeah, that was good. What's for dinner? It's just, she doesn't seem to care about my gifts or whatever. What she has always been really great at is supporting my faithfulness, recognizing times where I need encouragement, noticing when things are off, when I'm irritable, when I'm, what's going on with you? Not afraid to speak into my life. So relationally, that's been invaluable, that she's not somebody who is a man pleaser, but she's somebody that loves and really believes in me, but in all the right ways. As far as her, she's an incredibly strong woman. She moved here when she was 9 years old. She was a refugee from Vietnam. She's the first person to graduate from high school in her family, first person to graduate from college with her undergraduate from Ohio Dominican. When you talk to her, you'll be talking about something and she'll be like, yeah, I don't know how to do that. I'm just going to figure it out, and she'll figure things out. And you'll see her outside working on some project or doing something. And she's resourceful, she's resilient. And in the last 10 years, she's become really a marvelous counselor, very tender. She's developed a real tender streak, compassionate. So I would not be doing what I'm doing if it wasn't for her. I don't know. When you get married, you're making a decision that you are going to cash in on for decades to come. And I'm a very wealthy man. Very glad to have her as my wife.
Yeah, I've been married for almost 20 years now, 20 years this summer.
Wow.
My wife, like James was saying, I don't see how I could do what I'm doing if it wasn't for her. I'm in sort of a unique position because, my wife runs our family and makes that so easy for us to lead our family together just because she shares the same value system, prioritizing ministry, the body of Christ. But also, I feel like she pushes me in every way. I feel like, she reads the Bible more than me. She reads more than me. She memorizes scripture more than me. She prays more than me. And so I feel like I've constantly have this very gracious model that helps me to try to strive for excellence. She's really patient, supportive, encouraging, not demanding. Like James was saying, she sees my faults, but is really kind and gracious and doesn't push me on them too much, but still pushes me. But she's also an outstanding leader. She's a great teacher. 9 years ago, we worked out an arrangement where we started sharing our LTC class where each week one of us would stay home with the kids and the other would go and teach. And it was great for our parenting because we got equal time with the kids. And it was great for our class because I think having a woman up there teaching brought a different perspective. The women in the class would share more the week she would teach. And I think it gave them a vision for a woman leading for God. And then that kind of has come to the point where we co-lead a composite sphere together where she focuses more on the adult end of things. I focus more on the college end of things. So we kind of share the leadership duties in our sphere and in our LTC class. So it's a pretty interesting and unique shared ministry where I feel like God's able to use each of our strengths. And also it kind of shares the burden, which can be pretty hard to carry at times, enables us to kind of carry that together.
Wow. It's super cool. Thank God for that. Brian, you guys are great spouses. That's awesome. Well, great. Thank you guys for joining. Thank you for doing this. Thank you to you guys in the audience for listening. If you guys want to find more information about Dwell, you can always go to our website, dwellcc.org. Subscribe for future notifications. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.